Morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. You are tuned into SpeedGaming for the A Link to the Past Randomizer Standard Tournament 2021. I am Eudaimonistic, joined today by Ben Creighton. Ben, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. It is the crack of dawn here on the West Coast, and we're getting started early today. I love it.
Yeah, I've heard a few remarks about how homemade beer apparently is doing this before work, early in the morning. I'm assuming West Coast as well here in the States. Impressed by that. I don't know much about Waterloo as far as geographic location goes, but certainly a good sport for agreeing to this match of this hour.
Yep. Or maybe he's one of our lovely European competitors, and this is just the most convenient possible time for him, and he feels great. I don't know, but I'm happy about it. I like calming right after my coffee.
Well, maybe homemade beer prefers to race right after his first beer. His name actually Cerveza. For
Yep,
those
he was
non-Spanish
knighted,
speakers.
so he was knighted, so Sir Vesa is correct. Yes.
Makes a lot of sense, although he has this weird wobble about him. So it appears that Waterloo does seem to be European. So yeah, another example of this tournament being really awesome and international and all over the world. You never really know exactly when somebody's time, is going to be until you ask.
Yep, we got Chad informing us Waterloo's one of our French runners, which I suppose I could have guessed by the name, but you can't make too many too many assumptions.
Well, for those of you who haven't been tuning in to the tournament until today, this is, of course, going to be a standard start, hard item pool, and that's pretty much about it. Every seed, within those parameters for the entire tournament. We're about to get started here.
And we get a nice early map check. I spy with my little eye a green pendant in desert, a red crystal in Hera, and I want to say that was a blue crystal in Eastern. Can we confirm that?
That was correct. Also, a nice little bit example of palette shuffle here on homemade beer side. I almost thought for a second there was something weird with the contrast, but no, palette shuffle is much, much more watchable these days.
And we've got a sword start, which I always find a big relief as a runner and mildly disappointing as a watcher.
Yeah, you get pretty much your plain Jane escape sequence. You don't get the shield, which is unfortunate, but don't have to worry about arrows anyway. But it looks a lot like an NMG start in that sense. Of course, all things considered, we want to aim for about 610 or less in the escape sequence. We do spend a little more time gathering items. Hopefully, at least.
Yep, and I believe we saw that the green guards are on the one of the rupee prize packs, so we won't see them getting farmed for bombs today.
And with that sword, we don't have to worry too much about anything like ammunition. The standard start can give us a whole bunch of different weapons, including bow and arrow, fire rod, burna, all sorts of things that can require, judicious use of what we have. Sword we can use for pretty much everything. So a question in the chat about prize packs. Of course, there's about a 50% chance of getting any given prize from an enemy, with some exceptions. But the actual prize packs follow a certain specific order, so you're guaranteed to get the next consecutive item in it. And if you know the first couple of items of every prize pack, you can deduce which prize pack you're looking at. And a couple of them will have like some specific ones. Getting those rupees, the rest of them are going to be rupees. Also had a question in chat about race yesterday, about whether or not it's a tie. We're still waiting on an official decision on that from the admins as they do their review. Of course, not going to mention which race for spoiler reasons, but yeah, allow them to announce in the server and you'll find out. As for this race, though, we're about 3 minutes in, both about half the screen apart, walking into the ball and chain guard. Whether or not they do the 8/ or 1 pot and 4/, Waterloo going to save a little bit of time here, I think.
Yep, still very close here, and just a small key in Zelda's cell today, so we're going to be looking at Dark Cross for our next item. And this is a game 3 between these two runners, but here in group stages, it is double elimination. So the winner will go on to the winner's bracket here in Group H, facing off against Wall Kicks. The loser will go into the loser's bracket against Apathy Duck. So definitely an important race for both of these runners, but not quite make or breaking their tournament life quite yet.
Their series was one to watch as well. Saw some really funny things out of Apathy Duck as far as time waste, but perhaps moral victories. We happened to pick up what we knew was going to be a set of silvers, just for the sake of it. It's a pretty good clip in the tournament server. We're going to continue our escape sequence about 4 minutes in now. Movement and optimization, kind of a big hallmark of the escape sequence. You'll notice people trying to line themselves properly through doors, trying to avoid nudging, which burns a few frames every time you have to do it, as Link has to align with the door to properly go through it.
Yep, and this is one reason why I really like Standard Start as a viewer. It gets you that one-for-one comparison between runners just for that first 6 minutes or so. Really lets you compare some of that nitty-gritty execution stuff in a way that's obvious even to a layman.
Yeah, and you'll also see some of the deliberate choices that are made when it comes to enemies. You know, sometimes you don't have a weapon that you can afford to expend. You're going to see Waterleau here actually checking further into the prize pack to get more rupees. That could be a tactical decision for trying to buy bombs or considering your options after, say, Kakariko. So a lot of deliberate choices being made. You get to see that execution side by side, as you mentioned. The closest you get is like a competitive GT climb, which is, you know, for most races doesn't happen.
Yes, indeed. And a little more information on prize packs. So the green and blue guards and the snakes are all in the same enemy group, meaning that they do deliver from the same prize pack. The other option for prize farming, trying to get those bombs, is the rats, but those are in the magic prize pack today, which is not going to include a bomb. So both of our runners know, okay, I didn't get my bomb, I don't get to do those 3 checks, but at least I know the other runner is in the same boat.
Now, it is logically possible that something like their first glove being necessary could be in that secret passage, or I guess the secret wall that right before the sanctuary. They would actually have to walk through the front of the escape again in order to get there. So neither of them will have bombs through the rest of the escape sequence. Hopefully they'll get a glove to just be able to drop back down there later.
Yep, and you know, sometimes RNGesus likes to taunt you and give you those 3 bombs in Sanctuary, just to let you know he knows what he's doing to you.
Yeah, and as much of a bane as it is to get it too late, it is a boon to walk into the town with at least 3. 3, regardless of whether or not you want to farm for any, will allow you to get all the checks that you need in the early parts of the light world. Of course, you could farm more bombs 4 at a time in the bombable hut in the bottom left corner of the village.
And it looks like Waterloo's going to be going ahead and giving us our lumberjack check here today. Just a heart container as Homemade Beer finds a master sword there in the Lost Woods Thieves' Hut.
Yeah, and as he steps outside, it sure seems kind of like it's darn near midnight out there. Like, it seriously looks like twilight.
Yeah, it looks like fake Hollywood darkness where you can still see everything.
Or reminds you of like an old NES era color palette. Well, we were going to make our way into Kakariko, Homemade Beer, the first one into the buildings proper. Waterleau taking the time to check both Lumberjack and go through the forest in that route. Not going to like that small magic decanter tree pull, unfortunately. In the thieves' hideout, we do find the mirror and a little bit of rupees, and there's that glove.
Always nice to not have to worry about, oh, is my first glove in the back of Escape? Am I going to have to do that? Is that what's going to happen today? Not today.
Yeah, that's the dangerous feeling of not having a bomb in Escape. So now that that's out of the way, that's a big, breath of relief for everybody involved. Of course, our runners could have wasted a ton of time trying to farm for that bomb if they hadn't memorized or committed to memory those prize packs, so that's good heads-up knowledge to have. I believe that looked like a bombos in the well. I didn't see the first item myself, but we're seeing a lot of cash in here.
And there's that hammer.
So, a glove and a hammer. I think we're just a moon pearl away from proper Dark World access, aren't we?
I do believe you're correct. That's making it look a lot less likely that we're going to have an Agassiz situation today, although Moon Pearl can show up on Pyramid. If we find the lamp, that'll put that in logic.
Yeah, our defeat Ganon goal for this tournament does not require Aghanim to be killed unless, you have to do that to get to the Dark World in any particular seed. Or if the Lumberjack item is necessary. So, with defeat Ganon in mind, our runners are starting to look at much, I guess you'd call them much more dwindling opportunities to need to go up that tower. Well, moving on east, actually, Homemade Beer is going to take that powder and check the magic bat. This is a very easy to forget early check because you don't frequently have it on your first pass through.
Yep, and the very fact that you do makes you think, something important might be hiding in there. Let's wait through the cutscene and find out if we're right. Just arrows.
I mean, they are the first arrows. Yeah, that's never a good feel.
Yep, but Waterleau is indeed making the same play. So, walking out of your way like that doesn't feel great, but you gotta figure that's time that my opponent's almost certainly spending as well.
Yeah, certainly not a skip that you'd want to gamble on. No reason to. Here in the library, we're going to find the exact same thing. So we're going to spend as few frames as possible ever being in that building for the entire race. And speaking of races, we have the game. That one is only going to give us a heart container. Could be the same cart, probably never going to find out. However, Waterleau could just blind check it.
Homemade Beer wasting no time, wants to find out what's hiding in the back of that escape sequence. That's another set of checks that's easy to forget about if you don't go ahead and grab it now on your first save and quit.
And with bombs, and blues. I don't know, I prefer jazz myself if we're going to go that route. You could say that's the Blues Brothers in there.
Yeah, well, I would have the blues if I found that many bombs after the escape sequence. It still feels like RNGesus is taunting us today.
And having bought them at that. Or did they just pick up 10 natural bombs? Am I losing my mind here?
No, I'm fairly sure both runners did go ahead and go to the CAC shop and buy bombs there. Waterleau, correctly counting his items, knows that last chest is a map and pieces out early, saving himself just the tiniest bit of time there, but those little saves do add up.
Well, those escape chests are really a bummer because that bottle actually could have been turned in had we had it on the way out. So that's just a really annoying thing to have to come back to.
Yep, of course. We're almost certainly going to be heading back to the village at some point anyway for something like a flute turn-in or to take that crack portal to Dark World, so it's not the worst skip. Unless it winds up being Moon Pearl, in which case that's the last location almost certainly.
It would be pretty hilarious, I gotta be honest with you. Alright, I'm kind of hoping for it now. Another bottle coming here out of Mini Moldorm Cave as we see the dam being checked by Waterleau. Not a whole lot else in here. that's probably the best thing we got out of that.
Yep, homemade beer taking a walk out, and looks like he's going to be taking the long slog over to Ice Rod Cave. Another one of those easy to orphan locations. Feels a little bad without boots or flute to make it a little quicker, but you can't be... You're running out of places to check. You can't be orphaning things at this point.
Yeah, so kind of an interesting green tone we got going on here with the water as well. Homemade beer. I don't know if that's some new organic kind of beer he's trying to brew.
Yeah, that's is it St. Patrick's Day? That's the last time I saw beer that color. Otherwise, it's making me thirsty for some Ecto Cooler.
I can go for that, or like the old what's it called, the Nickelodeon slime stuff. Maybe Burna instead.
Yep, our blues motif continues with that Burna today.
Unfortunately, we will not see that in the actual armor upgrade. We actually did get a big green 20 at one point, which was very likely, actually, that armor. So maybe we could have continued it had it not been hard item pool. Did you see that that Lake Hylia Island item?
I did. That was a tempered sword. Might be a green 20 the next time we see it, for all we know.
Yeah, given our item situation, we're still short a flippers and whatever way we're going to get to the dark world. We do have the mirror, though. So we were talking... Sorry, go ahead. We were talking earlier about Aghanim. We need a lamp for that at this point, but that's not even that unlikely. There's that moon pearl, though.
Yep, and our runners consistently making the same routing decisions here, beelining for the most check-dense locations. So Waterleau will be finding that right after homemade beer.
Yeah, and interestingly, going to go from Link's house to the portal south of Link's house. So this is a hype cave play, and then potentially west.
And another map check. Looks like our other two pendants are going to be in Mire and Turtle Rock, along with a red crystal, rather, in Pod.
Yeah, so our runners have the... well, when Waterleau enters the Dark World, I'm sure we'll see a check there as well. Our runners have full knowledge of what our required crystals are, which is going to really help isolate what that go mode is going to be pretty early in the race. I mean, 16 minutes, definitely good to have that advanced knowledge.
And that was a fire rod in the back of Hype Cave there, so Hype Cave actually having something useful for a change.
Even better to get it here before you start exploring the Northwest Dark World. The entire Village of Outcasts and Northwest Dark World route will be much more efficient, knowing that you can complete Skullwoods.
Absolutely. So, interesting to note with that pendant location, the Red Cane could be in GT today.
And we do have 2/3 of the medallion requirements, so even if we did need to go into those, I mean, it's not likely that one's going to block the other. Unless it were Arcana Samaria and Misery Mire and something important in Turtle Rock. There's still possibilities. We don't know that much just yet, but as you mentioned, very interesting to have a possibility of not requiring it. And to confirm a question in chat, yes, we had seen Tower of Hera was the other 5/6, possibly mismarked. All right, we'll get to see the dig game here after that ether find. Both runners doing all the mirror checks along the way. And a very fast dig game. Just 3 in and we get a piece of heart. Given the health cap, it makes a lot of sense to walk away from that one.
Yep, unless it's an absolute jet seed, it's pretty rare to see runners get to Ganon with fewer than 11 or 12 hearts, which is pretty comfortable for runners of this caliber. And
since we'd seen some questions about it earlier as well, what items are replaced by, in a reduced item cap, setting like hard item pool. For example, with the health, you have 14 total heart containers that you can have. One of them is reserved for Sanctuary Heart, and there's a split 16 smalls to the remainder of full heart container. Everything else is replaced by a green 20 rubies. And that applies to all things that are replaced, like all mail upgrades, your fourth sword, silvers, etc., etc. So, and then since all of those things are progressive, you may find different green 20s in different actual items depending on where you found them first. All right, well, after that sick kid check, we're going to take that all the way into Village of Outcasts, both runners opting to take this portal as they don't have the Titan's Mitts yet.
Yep, and certainly there are other places that they could go, but hard to imagine veering too much from this route, considering we've got 2 fully clearable crystal dungeons ahead of us.
Yeah, a good feeling as a runner. Depending on how you feel about your execution, you may be sizing up your opponent as ahead or behind of you at this point, but we're really looking at maybe, 2 full overworld screens? That's not that big of a gap.
No, indeed, and the skill requirement to make it through qualifiers is such that I don't think you can be feeling too ahead at this point. You've got to assume the other guy probably knows what he's doing.
Well, perhaps homemade beer is going to assume that waterleau is going to be very thorough after all watering down the seed, and perhaps waterleau will look at homemade beer thinking that he might take a bit more of a drunken route and do something off-kilter, unexpected. It didn't deserve a reaction, you're right.
So here's my problem with push to talk on comms. Either I remember to push it down, in which case my laugh becomes performative, or I don't, and you never hear it.
That's a fair point, and you're a generous man at that. Thank you. All right, so we're going to see some Skullwoods here out of homemade beer, starting from the back, which is a very common way that a lot of people will do it when they have the ability to complete it and they know it's a crystal.
Yep, 2 items to be found in Skullwoods. He's hoping to find them both back here. Meanwhile, waterleau heading into Thieves Town.
Yeah, interesting to see the divergence there. I mean, after all, we had so much linearity up until this point. Ooh. Oh, no.
Rough stuff for homemade beer there. Misses a torch, and there we go. Manages to farm a full magic. He had one that disappeared just a few frames ahead of him reaching it.
300 IQ, long-term preparation. He was killing the Gibdos to advance the prize pack. I actually don't know if those 2 groups are together, mini Moldorms and Gibdos, but I want to believe it. And looks like we're seeing a setup for a death warp here for waterleau. Pause there for a second. Maybe not. I don't know. Might have changed his mind. We'll see the moth fight from homemade beer now. Not the most uncomfortable fight with a master sword and most of your magic meter for a fire rod. Certainly the preferred way to keep Mothula off the walls.
Yep. And looks like Moth was relatively friendly with his patterns there. Just a map for his troubles, so neither of the 2 items in Skull have been found yet. He did get a big key there in the bridge chest.
Yeah, that will allow him to full clear relatively efficiently, having the ability to do the bomb jump for the big chest or drop down if you prefer. Though that's a little less optimal for, say, mirroring back out. In the meantime, of course, waterleau will clear the entire dungeon for Thieves Town. This is a crystal after all, and we have quite a few things we still need. Definitely gonna need a bow at some point. We probably don't need that ice rod, or I hope we don't. Cane of Samaria still an enigma, and we definitely need that hook shot.
Yep, and of course Titan's Mitts always required.
Imagine flippers are probably preferred here. We do have a Swamp Palace to do as well. So a lot of unanswered questions here 24 minutes in. And just to spite me, homemade beer is actually going to drop into the big chest, which certainly makes me feel warm and fuzzy that I talked about it a moment ago.
Yep, slightly more viable with the mirror and not having checked that right-hand chest quite yet. Speaking of the mirror, homemade beer popping out and then in again for that mirror spot for a quick exit once he finds that second item. He did find that first item. It was another green 20.
A little more health and we are out of there. And as homemade beer makes his way back to Village of Outcasts and the rest of the checks there, including the dungeon, but we'll end up checking Bumper Ledge in advance, possibly getting the Graveyard Ledge as well, Waterlow here in the blind fight.
And that was a bow there on Bumper Ledge. That's going to be cape locked. Might wind up being necessary. There are 2 progressive bows in the item pool, so we could still find another one elsewhere. And a half magic over on Waterlow's side.
Yeah, that's an exceptional find off of blind for the benefit of making everything else in the sea just so much easier, including, and in particular, the GT climb. However, not a progressive requirement for anything. That flute is definitely warranted for searching. Homemade beer definitely pulling something important out of that, and it looks like Waterlow's right behind him with it.
Yep, that's a very nice find. That's going to open up all of the light side checks there on the mountain. I should say it'll put them in logic. They've been open for a while.
Yeah, the game will not expect you to go up there without the flute unless that lamp is available. We could, of course, and most runners who qualify for this tournament, I imagine probably all, can definitely do the dark climb.
Yeah, that's one of the easier dark rooms in the game, but limiting one's mountain climbs tends to be a strategy that a lot of folks pursue, and that would include not going up there out of logic unless you're really out of better options.
A little bit of a high five there as Waterlow leaves the Village of Outcasts area to scout out that bow shortly, or perhaps go to Skull Woods, maybe in opposite order. Homemade beer going to take the dive into Thieves Town himself. So with a flute, I imagine the next time you're going to the light world, you probably flute over to desert to see what's on that ledge, maybe get a Ginas.
Yeah, that's always a check that I like to make very early on after finding that flute, just for peace of mind, if nothing else. That Agina Cave is oftentimes the last Sphere 1 check that you bother with. And it can really bite you when it's something important.
Yeah, and as we look for other things the flute will give you, of course, there's the entire mountain. I imagine that the whole reason you would put the mountain off at this point is just to hopefully fish out, those Titan's Mitts, which could very well be on the mountain. But if you can find it elsewhere, you get a much more efficient clear. And that will be a lot of items.
Yes, indeed. The other play that the flute makes a little more painless would be fluting to 8, fake flippering into the water, and swimming up to Zora, which is our other out-of-the-way Sphere 0 check. Or Sphere 1 check, depending on how you like to refer to them.
Yeah, I think at that point it'd be Sphere 1 since, you are assumed to always be able to fill your pocket, so that's an interesting point. I guess by logic it would be Sphere 1 because you need some means of getting there.
Yeah,
Actually,
that's true. You do need either flippers or gloves in this case to put it in logic.
I'm getting myself twisted here, but we do have 500 plus rupees, and I guess the only reason you might hold off on that is if you wanted to save for pod. Pod into catfish with a mirror might not be that bad either. depending on whether or not you care about the waterfall cave and you know, the ledge item. Get a Mothula fight out of Waterleau here. Having a little more magic to work with, having gathered that half magic first, might be a little more friendly or comfortable of a fight.
Down goes the moth.
Alrighty, that is 2 crystals on the board for Waterleau. Homemade beer about to gather 2, having a little more dungeon left to complete. A little low on health, actually. Yeah, we'll get that powder here.
Yep, that powder is very nice to have here in Thieves Town. Very, very free refill right there. And with Waterleau finishing out his Village of Outcasts, Skull Woods play here in Skull Woods, giving him the option to a little more easily perhaps go to check that graveyard ledge if he's in the mood.
Yeah, we saw Waterleau and Homemade Beer take different routes to check the bumper cave, but they didn't seem very interested in going all the way to Graveyard Ledge at that time. I think Waterleau, as you mentioned, has the more convenient way to get there. So that'll be interesting to see, as that's new information for us, and it's a little uncomfortable to do that when you could potentially be waiting on, say, a King's Tomb for your Titan's Mitts, as it's possible to mirror into that spot.
Yep, of course, that won't be in play until the boots show up, which is always an exciting time here in these races.
Yeah, so I could totally see somebody putting off the Graveyard Ledge, thinking that they could hopefully pair the two together if they stumble across those boots. Blind going a little off the rails for Homemade Beer, but it looks like he's in control. One more slash, and clear. Two to two on the board, half an hour in. Looks like our runners have some decisions to make.
Yep, everything up to this point has been fairly linear, if not always logically, at least practically. This is the point where we might start to see some divergence.
Alright, Waterleau taking a chance to... I guess Waterleau hadn't seen the bow at that. I must have thought he did. But is heading east towards Graveyard Ledge, so we'll get to see that.
Yep, and well, it is certainly nice to have the option to route this in with the boots checks. Getting this this Dark World check in early means that you have the option, if you do find the boots later, of not bothering with a Dark World portal, just save and quitting out to Sank and checking your bonk rocks from there, and potentially King's Tomb as well if you find the Titans.
That's a good point. So we'll have that potentially on the table later if there's a last item that we need to find that might be a pretty good way to chain those two together. There's a lamp. And Homemade Beer is going to find this too.
Yeah.
And one thing I was considering is whether or not either of our runners feel like they're fast enough with something like a Kern jump to go get a cheeky catfish into Zora. Waterleau is going to go up the mountain. I think it's the time to do it. We'll see if Homemade Beer makes the same choice. I think I see why, though. I mean, the mountain becomes even more appealing as you just picked up that lamp. Now the old man is logically accessible.
Yep, Homemade Beer not going to worry about that catfish quite yet.
Well, I see some talk about it in chat, Ben. A lot of people talking about how Homemade Beer entered the Dark World a little bit ahead, and it kind of looks like a flipped script at this point.
Yep. Our runners staying pretty close to the same routing, making all the same checks, just that slight difference in order of operations between Skullwoods and Thievestown seems to have been the difference maker here. I can't say I've noticed any particular execution gap, at least not a significant one.
No, some small variances in the boss fights, but I mean, overall, they both handled them pretty well with relatively low equipment. Well, perhaps that explains why the series is at a 1-1 draw currently. This, of course, they're the closer seeded two of their group, third seed and second seed. Even some simultaneous cave entrances, albeit in different worlds.
Yep, waterleau gonna go ahead and give us a spike cave check here. This is often a check that you see put off until last on a mountain climb situation. On the other hand, with that crystal tower of Hera ahead of him, that'll give him a handy magic refill after spending his magic on that spike cave. So you spend a little bit of time, but receive a little bit of safety.
Yeah, that is an interesting point to bring up. Is thinking in the long term, they do have a blue potion, but you don't really want to have to use that blue potion. You want to save it for, some difficult combat late in the seed if possible.
And there's an ice rod on the floating island. As you said before, that's an item that we hope we won't need, but not going to be an issue until we get Titan's mitts.
I honestly think at that point, even if you can get it, you don't bother until you have to go into Turtle Rock.
Yeah, considering that it is right there in front of Turtle Rock anyway, that's really the only place you're going to use it.
I mean, you could use it on Lamolus if you hated the Fire Rod.
Yeah, I was about to say, it could be useful for some low-percent Landmola's strats, but not if you have Fire Rod.
You could check the Frozen prize pack. Freezing plus hammer, you know what I mean?
Yep, in Vanilla, of course, that's guaranteed to give you a magic refill. In Randomizer, it could be anything, even a magic refill. You know how much we've been wanting a magic refill.
With half magic, no less. But we're going to get Paradox Cave. I'm assuming the top of the cave, depending on a matter of perspective. Those two chests from Homemade Beer are double big 20s. Nothing but blues and twos in this seed.
Yep, waterleau opting to do, ooh, and there's that red cane that we said was potentially optional.
I mean, shoot, even if it is optional, it's very handy.
Oh, yeah, with, especially with Ice Palace in the offing a little later on.
Alrighty, we're going to see the basement here of Tower of Hera. Waterleau forced to go down here by key logic as Homemade Beer leaves Paradox Cave.
Yep, Waterleau went into Tower of Hera first before heading to the right side. Homemade Beer doing right side first, potentially hoping to get a hook shot to open up Herapot strats and make this dungeon a little bit faster. But was not to be.
Yeah, if the hookshot was found, that would open up an interesting scenario where you'd be skipping the basement and potentially orphaning the big chests. That won't be necessary today, as we're now forced to do the entire dungeon.
Waterleau with a very nice bomb jump set up there. That's one of the more dangerous bomb jumps in the game. If you miss it, you're going down 2 stories and enjoy the long climb back up.
Bomb jump? I thought that's the reset button on NMG runs.
It is when I'm playing.
Massive relate on that one. So we'll get another coffee break here, as it's frequently called, or tea if you're from EU. Waterleau actually had his tea break. Homemade Beer, probably a different beverage. I can't speak to that, but I mean, I imagine he's cooking up something at home. That was some immaculate hammering from Waterleau. 3 quick smacks to the tail and out of there.
just a map for his troubles, but also his third crystal of the game.
You know, only 3 in, but we are actually about 39 minutes in at this point. That's not a bad pace.
No, not bad at all. Still looking for either a cape to get that bow off bumper ledge or the other bow. Plus hookshot titans, but... And of course flippers, so that's what? 4 items from Go mode? Unless I'm missing something?
Yeah, we've been cutting out the stack pretty quickly on that front. I'm curious to see if we'll end up needing this Canis Samaria. I mean, not that it was in that weird of a place, but this is just such an interesting setup where you might not need it for crystals. Overall, the mountain not really producing much besides a crystal at this point. We're not going to get any other ones from this or the other version of it.
Yep, and starting to run out of good check dense locations to go. If you're one of our runners, this mountain's come up dry. Where are you going from here?
Well, we are midsless, so at this point, I think it's either Pod or Eastern. We wish we had a way into Desert Palace, you know, via the mitts, but that's not available off the mirror. I guess we want those boots pretty badly if we want to go there, so... Yeah, I think you probably go to Palace of Darkness here and be prepared to mirror into Eastern Palace. I almost feel like that cape's going to be the way we get that first bow. A little more wishy-washy here on Moldorm fight, but homemade beer gets out of it. Hey, you know, Ben, you mentioned it earlier, but Agina is still on the table.
Yep, it's true. Looks like Waterleau's going to agree with you. And certainly if you're going for the check density, the Pod Eastern area with a mirror to make going between them easier is the way that makes sense. Especially with Pod being one of those dungeons where it's relatively quick, even if it is a double dip, relatively quick to get back to that boss, which is the only thing that is unavailable right now, lacking a bow.
You know, I think the crowd consensus agrees with your point, though, that a lot of these things are long walks for single checks. You know, and this area is definitely going to give them the most. We'll see how homemade beer finishes this out after the Spike Cave here, and whether or not he's going to follow the same route or try and track down a couple erroneous locations that might have that bow or hook shot or maybe that elusive cape or boots.
And it looks like homemade beer is going to go ahead and do that Agina check. Just a piece of heart on the desert ledge. I've seen folks in chat saying, ooh, I haven't seen folks in chat saying hookshot, but I'm saying it right now. Look at that.
No, I'll agree with you, though. I have seen folks in chat saying, ooh. I would be, too, if I were finding hookshot at his first chest of House of Darkness. We're not even going to take any more time, of course, because you'd have to potion camera manipulate your way into the right half, and without, you know, the boots and everything else you'd probably want for the dungeon, not as appealing as just knocking this out real quick.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to stick to the up to 3 in logic checks here in Eastern rather than burning a safety just to get a couple, just to get the rest of Pod, none of which is in logic right now.
I confess I was so interested in this hookshot that I didn't really see what Agina's was.
Yeah, I don't see chat going crazy, so I'm going to assume it wasn't anything important.
It's also interesting that we got that hookshot. Makes this first chest of Eastern, or the second chest, excuse me, a lot more fun to get. I just don't like walking around it.
Yeah, it's just an extra couple screen transitions that just feel like busy work.
Boots listed that as well. This dungeon's a lot less fun without the boots. It's interesting that the way it's designed, it just feels better with them.
Yeah, I almost wonder if that wasn't an intentional design decision, just to make those boots feel extra good when you get them after slowly walking through all these straightaways.
Yeah, desert certainly feels like the reward for that item. That's a good point. Well, we are running out of things that we can do in logic here in Eastern Palace. We don't have that big key yet, so that's going to take us all the way around, and that will give us the big chest the next time we're here. Or the next time we get back to that room, I mean to say. Oh, homemade beer's going to go do the potion camera unlock, it looks like. Or not? Or so.
Looks like he was taking a moment to think about it. Thinks better of it, turns back around, and heads into the potion spot here.
So if any of you folks out there are unfamiliar with what the potion camera manipulation is, it's a little complex, but the basic gist of it is that you are using a potion within a certain range of frames, I guess, as you're crossing over the midpoint of a super tile, which is a group of rooms that load at the same time in the game's engine. And unlocking that camera from its fixed position in the kill room allows you to manipulate the game into not detecting. What the... Was that a bow?
I just detected a vanilla bow.
And so basically, with that camera unlocked, you wouldn't need the bow because the game would think they're dead. But you could just be homemade beer and just find it in... Or I'm sorry, you could be waterleau and find it in Eastern Palace, unlike homemade beer who went through all that trouble. Fantastic.
Yep, hard to imagine it making much of a difference. It's going to cost homemade beer a little bit of time, but not that much when he ultimately finds that in Eastern and has to walk back into pod.
And Waterleau going to put this to great use, going to kill the Armos Knights with hopefully 18 arrows, setting it for a bottom right fast kill. There's different amounts of optimization involved, but this is a little more accessible for most people to get on a consistent basis.
Yes, indeed. And meanwhile, on the right-hand side, homemade beer finds the flippers in the pod big key chest.
Even if you're not going to use the flippers for much besides Swamp Palace, it's a great informational find. You can deduce a lot of things about the Zora area, Swamp Palace's accessibility. That actually puts Swamp in full access.
Yep, and with 6 checks in there, that's going to be an obvious next place to go.
Yeah, and on top of that, you're in the neighborhood. I mean, I imagine you would still go to Eastern Palace while you're here, hope that you find that bow. But maybe you skip it? I don't know. I mean, as you mentioned, 6 checks and much higher odds of finding it there. Although I guess you know that it's bow locked, so I think you would just go to Eastern.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to do with those flippers out of logic. Oh, and there's the boots. Pod Eastern just having all the goods today.
Yeah, that one's nice because it just gives you a lot more options, but that may actually be more things that could drive homemade beer away from that bow. The more things you think you want to leave the dungeon area for to hopefully come back. I mean, it's just fluting in a portal to get back to Eastern, right? And if we don't find that cape, homemade beer can go quite a while without that bow if he decides to leave.
Oh, and that's a book as well. That's going to open up a couple of out-of-the-way tablet spots, plus with boots and fire source, all of green pendant.
I'm sorry, Ben. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but homemade beer is not going to get that bow right now.
Yeah. It's hard to blame him, but it is a little rough. He could very well be thinking, well, I got these boots now. It's going to be quicker to come back to this.
I would argue, though, that if he does come across that cape, he's for the most part, bailed out on this. I mean, it's not exactly all that fast to come back to. I mean, you do still have to consider the portal for the finish pod, and then you can mirror right back out into Eastern again. And he does save the time of not having to, consider the double dip of Eastern, even though it didn't end up being one. Yeah, that's rough. I mean, one simple decision about how you respond to hook shot and shooter chest literally being a massive difference in routing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's really easy to say in hindsight, but I do agree with Waterleau's decision to stick to logic first. You can always go back for those out of logic pod chests after you've completed the logically available checks.
Yeah, I certainly don't fault homemade beer here. It's just an interesting contrast to see. And I believe your previous call of going to swamp is about to hold true. Though you did mention we now have a tablet to check, we have desert to consider. I mean, this could actually end up being a pretty efficient chain of checks if you go straight to desert after this. Or I could be 100% wrong. We'll also get to see what Helmasaur has for us today. Waterleau is going to be the only of the two to, in this pass, defeat the bosses.
Yeah, I'm sort of puzzled about homemade beer's decision making here. You've got a 6-check crystal dungeon ahead of you, prioritizing these overworld checks that were already available to you anyway. I don't know, it feels a little weird.
I think the center of my confusion about this is not doing the catfish into Zora instead of this way around. Is it possible homemade beer feels behind right now? I don't think there's anything that was that bad. He might be dreading a certain item at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that the bonk setup for the quick warp on the mirror here probably... Okay. Well, we're going to go check the witch's shop, the potion shop right now. Well, as homemade beer doesn't use the quick warp because he realizes he's probably not going to walk anyway, we'll get to see the Helmasaur King fight and a item, I believe, off of this. I didn't count perfectly, but we'll find out. I didn't know the exchange rate on mushrooms was going to be explosives, but homemade beer probably not feeling great about that one.
Yep, it's not what you're hoping to see. And it looks like homemade beer's going to change his mind and go back to Eastern after all.
It is a little unfortunate that he's not going through the pod part first, but it could be any number of things that's in Eastern. You don't know necessarily that it's going to be the bow. You can maybe even think it's going to be the cape to lead to your bow. So I understand wanting to just get in here and get the checks. It's just going to turn out worse than having gone through the pod and portaling from there. Mirroring. I got that backwards.
Yeah.
However, Waterleau going to stick to the namesake. I think this is finally the swamp play, right? Please, come on, runner.
Yeah, I mean, I've been I've been not the greatest with predictions.
Ole.
What? All right. Now, I mean, granted, I know a lot of runners do really like to have the option to go mode swamp, but this many items from go mode.
Okay, I agree with this, actually.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. You know that sword's there. You know you're gonna want it. It's gonna make everything quicker and easier.
Yeah, so I mean that's gonna help with speed in swamp. I mean you're not exactly looking at 1,000,000 hearts at the moment. It's not bad either, but you do take a lot of chip damage or have a lot of opportunity for that in swamp. And if you're gonna do that check, you may as well get the rest of the water. You can flute away. It makes sense. Also, these guys qualified and I didn't, so how much can I really criticize?
Yeah, I try to always be clear when I say I don't understand a decision. That's not the same as saying it's a bad decision.
Yeah, and then maybe it was beer routing that got homemade beer through. I mean, this may have been the thing that won him more qualifiers, so could potentially represent a difference between 1v1 format and large race format. You did have to have some skill at both to get any true progression in this tournament. All right, but finally, we've arrived a number of minutes later, and we're still wrong.
Yeah, this is one that I'm not sure how I feel about. I mean, certainly you can check this tablet and then go into swamp, but what are you hoping to find here that's going to change your decision making in swamp versus doing swamp, this, and then potentially desert if you have no better options ahead of you?
Just to spite us, Waterleau is going to survive this dungeon with 1 heart left, and I'm going to laugh at myself about it. Yeah, so that heart container, we don't have confirmation of whether that's a regular one or a Sank heart. We're still wondering about that race game heart at this point. But Waterleau walking in with a little more health. Hopefully doesn't need it. We do have the Cane of Samaria, so we have some potential speed tech involved in this dungeon, some diving down. Diving down? Sorry, English. And homemade beer, having found that bow, we'll be able to finish up this chain. Whether or not, he's gonna have to go to pod from here. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it feels bad taking that circuitous route where the boots don't even help that much, but you got to do it sooner or later. There's never going to be a better time.
So we'll see a pretty hefty advantage in terms of dungeon clearing for Waterleau here at this point. Homemade beer still getting the final Armos kill there without expending 3 extra arrows to do so from the health refill, or I guess 2 more. But Waterleau will be basically most of Swamp, or if not all of Swamp, well ahead of homemade beer. And if there's something important in here, which has seemed very likely to me at least, then that's a really nice advantage over homemade beer.
Yep, of course, at this point, you're what, Titans from Go mode?
Yeah, it's getting to that point, isn't it?
Yeah, so 1 item from Go mode, and happy day of all happy days, you know it can't be in either Mire or Turtle Rock. That's entirely off the table.
Interesting. So we're potentially just looking at Ice Palace if Swamp isn't the answer, and homemade beer could potentially go to Ice Palace first, particularly if you get that Tempered Sword. They both know about the Tempered Sword, Waterleau having picked it up and homemade beer having scouted it earlier. That's a reason he may go that route first, and if so, could skip Swamp if nothing's in here.
Well, the thing about Ice Palace is you do need those Go mode Titans mitts to get inside.
Yeah. Sorry, it's early in the morning for me. Yeah, that rock in front, probably important.
I literally made the exact same mistake on the last race I commentated, so if it makes you feel better, you just made me feel better about it.
Hey, all right. We take those in stride. Yeah, so limited number of places anything can really be at this point, and there's really not a whole lot else that our runners even need to consider. You could potentially find more bottles. You're not going to really open extra things to try and find one. If you have 1 blue potion, you feel pretty good.
Yep, you've also got that powder for any number of spots where you can use an anti-fairy for a quick heal. Or you've got that half magic, so magic management is not as big a deal. Our runners are probably feeling pretty good about their safeties right now. Or at least as good as you can in hard item pool.
Yeah, being capped at a 14, and more likely than not, 13 hearts is really what you're likely to find if you don't stumble into that Sanctuary Heart, or if you're unfortunate enough to have skipped at a race game like these two, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, you can't get silvers, you can't get all the other stuff. You know, we have all the important things. You have powder, you pretty much have your dream. I know, it's alive. So we got an example of Diver Down. I imagine most of the people watching this have probably seen it before, but it's a nice interior rail clip you can do by sandwiching yourself between a Kena Samaria block and being in the exact right X coordinate. Of course, you can do that with a bomb explosion as well. The game just doesn't really detect how well you're into a half tile, and it just kind of works. You just jump into the water. Game doesn't understand the layers, and we take advantage of that to great extent here in Swamp Palace where possible.
Yep, it's one of those glitches that when it was legalized, a lot of people kind of raised their eyebrows. But boy, I'm so happy they made that race legal. It's fun to do. It's fun to watch.
There's something had to be something else that was all the rage after Spooky Action Glitch took the spotlight in the 2019 tournament. That was the single largest actual time save in the speedrun. You know, for years, for a long time. There's a new world record that happened immediately after, and has become kind of a ubiquitous glitch in Misery Mire. There they are.
Oh, and that's go mode. 1 hour and change into this absolute jet scene.
So an interesting situation for Homemade Beer. You know, presuming he goes directly to Swamp Palace, you decide to skip left side swamp, and that's a nice healthy chunk of time. But I mean, at this point, I think Waterleau, it would be his race to lose.
Absolutely, and yeah, I think if I'm in Homemade Beer's shoes right now, you know you're one item from go mode. You're probably feeling a little bit behind, based on how the Eastern and Pod area went. I think skipping left side is a very strong option for him right now, and one that will reward him if he decides to go for it.
As far as things that would actually separate our two runners, you pretty much got GT routing and that swamp decision. In execution to a certain extent, but with Tempered being the cap to begin with, and both of our runners soon to have Tempered Sword, they're not going to have a lot of advantages to consider over each other. There's a one bottle advantage for Homemade Beer. I think it's a fairy in it, so there's a little bit of extra safety. And that may have been a Waterfall Cave acquisition, if I recall correctly.
Yep, I'm gonna defer to your recollection there because I do not recall at all.
Well, if we end up taking a death, we will find out if Link himself is on recall with that fairy. So we'll have some kind of confirmation if things turn south. Speaking of turning south, Homemade Beer arriving at Swamp Palace as Waterleau is entering ice. So effectively a one dungeon advantage pending Homemade Beer's choice.
Yep, and I'm trying to remember fairies. How many hearts do fairies refill?
That is 7, the exact same as you get from powdering and picking up the fairy off the from the powder. 7 is always a really nice refill. I mean, it's about half of your max, unless you do get that Sankard.
Okay, but with 10 hearts to their names at this point, what I'm getting at is that would not be a total recall.
Why did I not see that coming? No, it would not be. Certainly time expenditure, though. We hope not to see any deaths.
Yeah, that fairy usage, having to go all the way to the game over screen, wait for the animation, wait for the refill. It's better than starting a dungeon over, but it's not something you want to use if you can help it.
Yeah, you'd hate to see them die in hard mode, but, you know, it's possible. With green mail, we're definitely, you know, exposed to that risk. All right, we're going to see some more of Ice Palace here from Waterleau. Really not much to stop for, so we're just going to make sure we hit the switch early in the dungeon. Going to follow the key to the left side and then get right to the boss. A little bit of weirdness, but a good recovery with that hook shot. Time now for Homemade Beer to make a choice. We're going to pick up the key, but that doesn't mean much yet. We can still dive her down to the left with it.
Nia's going to go ahead and grab this canal chest. He's not in go mode yet.
The first to 11 hearts, but will that be enough to send him to the boss? And it would appear so. All right, so Homemade Beer is going to get some time back from Waterleau. Good setup for the cold stare fight. Bit of a messed up altitude variable disrupting the fire rod splash, but that's not going to stop him from finishing this one out. Interesting, and Homemade Beer getting the big key does not decide to take the bait and head back. We'll go and get these mitts, which will put him at about a 5 minutes difference for go mode.
Yep, that sounds about right. And yeah, I definitely agree with the decision not to go back for that big key. You got to figure, if I decide to go back in for left side anyway, then I'll just grab that big chest then.
Well, speaking of interesting choices, Waterleau doing something that you don't always see in a race, but is definitely a great piece of game knowledge to exploit. Because of the randomizer used to have the Wishing Well Fairy, I believe it's called, or the Fairy of Fortune, I can't remember which, used to have the bomb and arrow upgrades from turning in various amounts of money from the vanilla game. Because those became items in the item pool and then got removed, you can now just buy those upgrades as actual items. From that after you leave Ice Palace, and that's a great way to make sure that you have enough for GT. I believe there's a game we like to play. I see chat's already participating.
Yes, indeed. There are, in fact, 22 locations where that GT big key could be hiding. You can put your bets in, put your predictions in, and if you get it right, you will win real fake internet points.
That's like fake powder, right?
Yeah, exactly. Accepted wherever fake internet points are sold, or bought, or traded, bartered.
Sahazra Labot controls all of that, I believe, or Sahabot. So there's one imaginary, person, or I guess, I don't know, are bots imaginary persons? One place that you can turn those in, and that's just for leaderboard ranking. All right, we're about to cut that off here shortly, including my pun train. I wasn't going anywhere with that one. But get your guesses in, last chance. We'll be ending it, and then we'll be counting off of Waterleau's locations. Well, Ben, I think I saw you throw a 2 in there.
Yeah, I like to see a nice friendly hope room, and that first one's got to be a small key, because you do need one of those. Aw.
Hey, we're halfway there. Well, now we finally get to get the confirmation, though, Ben. Is this Mario actually required? Because we haven't needed it for anything else, so if the big key's over here on the right side, then, yes. If not, then the dream. A little bit of an uncooperative Stelphos is not gonna stop Waterleau to continue on to the compass room. Or is this the map room? I never get that right.
I'm fairly sure this is the compass room, but
yeah, the map's on the left side with the fire bars. I remember now.
Ask anybody I've ever played co-op with. They'll tell you I do not know where vanilla map and compass locations are.
Fair point, and we get confirmation that Cane of Samaria is not logically required today. So that was 6 total locations. Waterleau going to pick up that extra small key, a wise choice. You're going to need at least one more to climb the tower if you continue left here. Or, I'm sorry, if you were to find the big key, you need at least one to climb the tower and not be short one. Words today.
Yep. I feel what you're saying.
7 was the torch, 8 is a small key, 9 300 rupees that we definitely don't need. 10 bombs, and 11 lords of leaping. I'm sorry, keys. We have a lot of keys, 4 of them, and number 11 not going to be the choice today. I picked 12 myself, so I mean, holding out for hope here in the confirmed map room. I remember. Odd. Found the map in the compass room.
Yep.
The compass in the map room. Nice boomerang strats as we also see Homemade Beer taking on the Cold Stare fight. Got a little bit out of hand, but definitely contained with that Fire Rod. Half magic definitely helping us out a lot today.
And lucky number 13 is not the answer here today. It is on to the randomizer room, so named because there is never any reason to go in there unless you are playing the randomized version.
Yeah, a bunch of, I mean, you could even call it junk fill. In the actual game, there's just really nothing all that important in here. Certainly nothing that you require. 14, not that great. 15, no better. 16, certainly not getting better. And 17, our final shield, finally. So I think like anything you'd pick up that'd be progressive would be a green 20 at this point. Except for health.
Yep. That third shield, the mirror shield, one of the omissions from the hard item pool that it's easy to forget about just because, let's get real, who cares about that mirror shield?
Yeah, only a handful of things it's useful for. Say goodbye to Bob. That is 18.
Oh, our GT Big Key. Happy birthday. It's old enough to vote.
Yeah, they grow up so quick. Well, Waterleau going up so quick. On his way up to the tower, it's hour and 11 minutes in. This is turning to be quite the fast finish. All things going smoothly from here. Homemade Beer on his way to GT. Got a bit of a separation to close, or a gap to close. Could end up going full left and making up some time, but that doesn't seem that likely.
Yep, and even if he does, that's still a heck of a gap. He would have to do everything right and still rely on Waterleau making some mistakes at this point.
So I would suppose we were in the realm of you would need to despawn the tower or have a really rough time with Ganon. Now, the Ganon fight isn't free by any means. 1+1 already a difficult first and second phase to pull off. Even with experienced runners, the pressure of a fast race seed can definitely push you over the edge on that front. And speaking of being pushed over the edge, the phase 4 with 12 silverless spins, not that hard to get knocked off in that scenario and have to repeat the fight. Those are things that could potentially work in Homemade Beer's favor, and when you're both in GT, that is definitely within the realm of possibility.
Yep, and it looks like Homemade Beer did indeed go full, well, he went left to start. We will see whether he goes full left, or, yep, he's going to mirror out of the Stalfos room. That's going to cost him.
Yeah, going with combat avoidance there is a common strategy these days. Well, I guess it has been for years. The theory being that if you go to those real quick and then try to avoid the Stalfos, there's less time wasted and you get more checks quicker. Will not work well today for Homemade Beer. It's actually going to isolate it to the same check number. Yeah, he's not going to gain or lose time here, I don't think.
Yeah, just a little bit having to do the rooms leading up to the hookshot room over again. Not a terrible time loss, but unfortunately he is already behind and running out of ways to make that up.
I guess it depends if Homemade Beer decides to go back left before checking the... I guess you would probably check the actual chest before Ice Armos if you're going to go this route. You go all the way right. Yeah, so this might actually save some time.
Yeah, that's true. If he does decide to go full right from here, but nope, it was not to be. It's been a long while since I've seen a full right play. Most runners prefer to put that Ice Armos fight off until the very last.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And it's not unexpected, but, you know, just kind of worked out the worst way. Well, Waterleau made it all the way through the gauntlet very quickly. Smooth finish, has enough magic to get the full health refill here. So the last gasp before Ganon will be a full restock as he walks into the Moldorm 2 fight. Wow, that was quick.
Yeah. As tempered and above Moldorm fights tend to be, but even by those standards, just knocked it right out.
Yeah, nice positioning for Moldorm to get the fast spin in the corner. We'll see an Aghanim 2 fight coming up next for Waterleau, trying to get 6 total hits, and only the actual real Aghanim can do the blue ball attack, so a minimum of 2 cycles, probably more for most runners.
Yep, and in fact, it will not be the fabled double-triple today. Just a single to start off the proceedings.
That's a really tough pattern. You get the point-blank blue ball shot, and then, you know, you just have to react after that. And the delayed, or the early warp from the first Aghanim, the real one, actually going to make him miss.
Yeah, that next cycle, Waterleau got robbed. Should have been an easy double.
Well, all things considered, walking out without too much damage, maybe feeling a little shaky after that, considering how fast the seed has been. In this situation, I think even if you are blazingly quick, you're still looking at the racetime.gg room thinking, is my opponent maybe like a minute faster on that one thing?
Yep, neither. Waterleau never went too far out of his way for anything in particular, but with a seed this fast, small differences can be the difference. He might be thinking, well, what if homemade beer skipped graveyard ledge? Lots of little time saves he might have gotten. But of course, we know Waterleau is very comfortably ahead.
Or what if my opponent, you know, went straight to the right or left and finished, you know, all the way to Ice Armos, got it right away for the big key. Plenty of things that you could be running through your mind. Waterleau almost dead here. I don't believe Waterleau has a fairy. It should be a blue potion, so he's got to be very careful. But appears to have gotten the 1+1, so we're moving into the back half of Phase 3 here, almost in Phase 4.
Yep. Meanwhile, on the other side, homemade beer has found that GT big key and is starting his gauntlet climb.
Nearly hugging Ganon here, as we see Ganon Ball Z itself actually in homemade beer side. That is the second sword spin, I believe. About to light the torch after the torch glitch.
I believe you're correct. Setting up a nice triple here.
A little bit of an unfortunate facing for the sword charge. Wasn't going to be able to get the full 3 on this one, but a little bit of patience goes a long way with this fight. You got to know when Ganon's in the right position if you want to get consecutive triples. Wisely going to wait for the reset. That's smart. Half a heart, not a problem. Waterleau finishing it out. Presuming he walks into the Triforce room without a game crash or anything, he will be the victor of this race.
Yep, he's positioning himself such that this bridge will spawn before he gets to it. No worries about a tumble. Waterleau does in fact finish with an official race time of 1 hour, 17 minutes, and 44 seconds. Get your GGs in chat.
Well, we'll see if we can get Waterleau in here for an interview. I'm hoping we can get homemade beer as well. Looks like he's going to finish out the seed, as he's only just a little bit behind overall, grand scheme of things, making his way up the back half of the climb. Should be through to Moldorm 2 and Ganon shortly as well. We are joined by Waterleau, the victor of the race. Congratulations and GG.
Thank you, GG. What a jet seed.
Yeah, I thought I heard a plane going over.
Yes, when I found the 3% pod, I was okay. Now, meats and we're done. Because I was afraid to find meats first and to have the choice between Desert Palace, Mire, Total Rock. But after meats was just okay. Brush swamp, and after those maybe 10 locations, then we can go to GT.
And you certainly read the seed very well. One thing in particular I wanted to ask you about, the choice to leave Palace of Darkness right after getting the hook shot. We knew you had a potion at the time. Had you considered the potion camera unlock?
Yes, or I can mimic clip. But I didn't want to gamble on something in pod. Because the thing was, I already seen a bow on a bumper ledge, so I didn't want to go out of logic. At that moment, I had Eastern Palace, Agina, Catfish, Zora, and Pyramid Ledge in logic. So I knew I had something on that position, and the probability to find or the cape or the other bow in those locations was pretty high. So I decided to do Eastern, those 2 or 3 checks. And in fact, I was surprised to find the other bow, but it was okay. I like that.
Yeah, and at that point, it could have been like any of the other things you required. It's just really funny to get that in particular. Were you wondering if that was going to be the cape when you were about to check it?
Yes. Or meets that's not because we have Dark World access early. That meets can't be in that sphere 0. In fact, that bow was lamp locked, so it was not at the beginning of the logic.
Right, and still possible, which might have sent you in all sorts of different directions in the grand scheme of things.
Well, yes.
I will say that the big separation point, and we saw some divergence, the two of you approached Skullwoods and Thievestown in opposite directions, but I would say the true turning point of this race was that decision to leave Pod with the hook shot to go to Eastern. Homemade Beer did not go to Eastern at that point, ended up leaving the area. And ended up doing a potion camera unlock in Palace of Darkness, finding the items that led him astray. That was kind of the big turning point. And I gotta say, the way you read it and stayed in logic ended up being the thing that won the day, in my opinion.
Yes, I'm happy that every time I win a race because of a decision I logically do. Yes. Makes my day. Yes, it's better than like because my opponent does a big mistake and I win. If it's because of one of my decisions, I enjoy it a lot.
Well, I'm pretty sure Ben can agree with me. All throughout this race, we felt like everything we wanted to predict ended up being immediately proved false.
Yeah, we did seem to have a bad habit of saying, well, he's clearly going here. Oh, nope. For example, you did do a couple of overworld checks before heading into Swamp. Can you share your decision-making process on that?
That was the sword on Lake Alia Island. I checked it before Sahasrara pretty early, so I knew a sword was there and I could do Argus a lot faster. And I said, okay, I'm there. It's the best moment to do Hobo, so I will do it now. It's 15 seconds. And that Bombo's tablet. When I'm one of go mode, I do it every time before swamp. Like, if it's there, you can probably win the race because of that, and you lose what 30 seconds, and maybe you can. Yes, you can skip a lot of things in swamp. I'm not sure about my left side swamp play. Every time I'm not sure about that, but I was afraid to lose because of that left swamp.
That was one of the things that that we did see different between two of our runners today, and we did also see just a moment ago on stream Homemade Beer finishing his race, finishing out the Ganon fight. In second place with official time on our racetime.gg of 1 hour 23 minutes and 1 second, and we're actually joined by Homemade Beer. GG.
Hey, GG's.
So this is quite a wild ride. Homemade Beer, we wanted to ask, about the moment that you decided to potion camera unlock. That ended up being such a pivotal part of this race. What led you to do that? Did you find the lack of cape at that point, enticing potentially, or how are you looking at that situation?
Well, I figured since I knew where a bow was, I'm either looking for cape or the other bow, and sometimes you can have a bow locked bow in pod. That's not super uncommon. I haven't seen it in a while, but I figured I go back here and look and keep in mind everything that's out of logic by doing this play, and then after I left, I had a bunch of movement items to make me say, okay, maybe I missed the bow on the overworld. Let me go check the things that are in logic, and which I did. I checked, I think after that I did like Pyramid, and then maybe I did Zora first, because I figured maybe bow was early, Zora has a cape or something, or a bow, and then checked Pyramid and Catfish, and figured that was the last two checks I had. So after that, I just went right back to EP.
Yeah, it was a surprisingly linear setup for the race up until that point. The big thing that we had seen differently from the two of you on Restream was before then was just a reversed order for Skullwoods and Thieves Town. But up until Pod, we'd pretty much seen the same steps from the two of you. That was a big diverging point. But I got to say, this is an incredibly fast race. I mean, for second place time of 1 hour 23 minutes, that's saying something about the both the skill level on both sides of this and the craziness of this seed for how quick it was.
Yeah, just to complete, the reason that I did Skullwoods in second is that I wanted to sequence break Death Mountain after Graveyard Ledge to find a bow before going to Pod Eastern.
Oh yeah, right, because of
that
the
was the reason I did Village of Outcast first, and Skullwoods, Graveyard Ledge, and maybe Death Mountain after. But I found the flute in that way, but that was the reason at the beginning.
Yeah, I think flute was just in Sea House or something.
Yep.
Yeah, I was really happy with my routing actually up through the Graveyard Ledge play was kind of weird because I skipped it first. I went into Thieves Town, but when I found the flute, I figured, okay, it's not optimal, but now since it's like you have to go through walking through all the bushes and stuff, like I have a flute now, so I can just finish it and mirror out instead of having to walk anywhere else after that, and then flute right to the mountain. But yeah, I think the biggest I liked the outcome from sequence breaking into Pod, but then leaving Eastern was basically like the kill shot.
Yeah, it's having to go back to both of the dungeons and run back through them, with the entrance and everything involved, certainly was time costly.
Yeah, so I mean, in the end, like I still kept everything in mind that when I opened the big chest, I was telling myself this is either a cape or a bow. We'll see which one it is.
Well, I think in spite of that, you definitely made the most out of this race that you could. I mean, that's definitely a hefty chunk to take down, and that gives me a lot of optimism for the remainder of the group space for the two of you, as this is just the first series of the tournament for you. Waterleau, of course, rising to 2-1 here in this. Will go on to take on Wall Kicks next week, And homemade beer, you've got apathy ducks. So both of you don't have any breaks here involved. I mean, this is still a really hotly competitive group.
Yes, it will be the mystery players game.
Yeah.
And yes, just to say a word about homemade beer. Dude, you're playing that great for someone who started like months ago. I can't believe that you became that good in that small amount of time. Just GG with that. I was definitely not sure to win that game. So GG.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I like to watch good players, and I like to watch your stream sometimes when you're playing, and so I always enjoy learning from players better than me.
Yeah, that's a great time to point out, folks. If you haven't followed these two runners, you should. We'll have, I believe, Blast Egg, our tracker, already put the !R command in the chat. But I got to ask for some context here, homemade beer. Waterleau just mentioned a few months. When did you start playing the game?
Right around the end of October was the first time I picked up a rando.
Holy mackerel on catfish. That's not that long ago. Wow. And qualifying for the tournament. So I understand the sentiments from Waterleau. That's incredible.
Yeah, like for the tournament stuff, I just kind of figured, I'll play some qualifiers, see how I stack up, and ended up getting a couple seeds that worked in my favor. And after I qualified, I realized, like, oh crap, I have to actually play in this thing now. But it's still really exciting. Like, I'm not putting anything down. It's just like, okay, I need to actually practice a bit and tighten up some execution stuff and practice routing, like the things that like are kind of just take time and practice to learn. You can't get better at them without just playing more.
Well, no doubt, folks, if you want to see more from these two, and they're definitely exciting runners to watch based on this performance today, obviously check them out on their channels, but also, follow all these SpeedGaming channels and ALTTPR if you want to see the rest of the tournament. Of course, we're not going to be able to broadcast every single match out there. There are so many, between 128 players, but, there's still a lot of tournament left, and, this series is not the end of the road for either of them. The beginnings of hopefully a long tournament run. No shade towards wall kicks or apathy duck. There's no free group. This is just wild to witness. And of course, there's a lot of more randomizer today, and we'll talk more about the schedule in a moment. But as we get closer to the end of this, for today, any closing thoughts? Starting with Waterleau.
Just as every time, thanks for everything. It's always a pleasure to see back the race. So thanks for everyone who is working on it.
Yeah, thanks for everyone for having us, and I feel honored to be restreamed every time. It's always a pleasure to be on here and to get to watch back. Read the commentary, hear the comms, like think about what other people think of my decisions, and kind of learn from that. But it's been a blast so far. It was a great community, and I encourage anyone who hasn't tried it yet to just pick it up and go join the ladder, and you'll be. You might lose a couple at first, but you'll start getting paired against people at similar skill level, and you can talk to them afterwards. Everyone's real friendly, so.
There's a fun trash talk channel. Post gifs.
Exactly.
All right. Well, looking ahead for the rest of the day, we've got a bit of a break before our next match over on SpeedGaming 4 will be Penny Royal Oil versus Magnet Hands at 4:40 p.m. Eastern Time. And just a stacked schedule after that. Willard J. Bradley versus Namefaker on SpeedGaming 5 at 5:25. Hitsuyan versus Walter IV on SpeedGaming 3 at 6:10. P-Chain versus Prior 57 on SpeedGaming 4 at 6:40. And more matches than we have time to list off for the rest of the evening, culminating in a midnight match on SpeedGaming 2 between PRD Wong versus McLagging. So no shortage of rando to watch here today.
Yeah, and of course, we're even still trying to find enough commentators for all this stuff. For those of you out there who have the commentary role in the tournament, take a quick look at that 810, the other 1010. But, if you're interested in volunteering, of course, the tournament server has an application process you can follow. We'll, try and get you on the mic. We do appreciate all the effort that people have been putting to put on this tournament. And I'd also like to thank for the broadcast today, Blast Egg, for tracking for us. And Ben, it's always a pleasure to be on the mic with you. I appreciate your tolerance for my puns and, frankly, the better puns that come out of you.
I'm a connoisseur of puns, so always enjoy. Thanks for co-commenting with me.
Well, I think that about does it for us here in the commentary booth today. Folks, thank you for tuning in, and there's plenty more Zelda to watch and plenty more Zelda to play, as there always is. I've been Udiamonistic, joined today by Ben Creighton. Folks, enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your weekend.